There comes a moment, usually quiet and unexpected, when you realize your emotions no longer rush to the surface the way they once did. Someone dismisses you. A familiar disrespect appears. A younger version of you would have reacted instantly, defended, explained, proved. But now, something else happens. You pause. You feel the emotion rise, and then you feel it soften. And that surprises you. Most people are told that aging means losing things: energy, relevance, control. But there is one ability that often grows stronger without announcement: emotional control. Not the forced kind, not suppression, but the steady, grounded control that comes from having lived long enough to know what is worth your reaction and what is not. In your earlier years, emotions felt urgent. Everything felt personal. A comment could follow you for days. A slight could keep you awake at night. You replayed conversations in your head. You wondered how you were seen. You carried the weight of approval and rejection everywhere you went. That intensity felt like being alive, but it also felt exhausting. With time, something shifts, not because life becomes easier, but because you become clearer. You start to recognize patterns. You've seen this type of person before. You've felt this kind of disappointment before. You've survived this kind of loss before. And because of that, the emotional charge weakens, not the feeling itself, but the need to act on it. This is one of the quiet gifts of aging. Emotional control does not arrive as a lesson. It arrives as recognition that most situations do not require your full emotional investment, recognition that reacting rarely changes outcomes, but responding calmly often changes how you feel about yourself. When you were younger, emotions felt like commands. Anger demands expression. Hurt demands explanation. Fear demands reassurance. With age, emotions begin to feel more like information, signals rather than orders. You can listen to them without obeying them. This does not mean you feel less deeply. In many ways, you feel more. You notice subtleties others miss. You sense undercurrents in conversations. You recognize when respect is absent, when intentions are unclear, when silence speaks louder than words. But instead of rushing to confront, you choose observation. Observation creates distance, and distance creates control. There is a certain dignity in not needing to prove how you feel, in not needing to announce your boundaries, in not needing to explain why something hurt. You simply adjust your presence. You withdraw slightly. You offer less access. You protect your inner space without confrontation. This is often misunderstood by others. Some interpret it as weakness. Others mistake it for indifference. But it is neither. It is discernment. It is the understanding that emotional energy is finite, and wasting it on every slight leaves you depleted. One reason emotional control becomes easier with age is that you stop confusing intensity with importance. In earlier years, strong emotions felt meaningful. If it hurt deeply, it must matter deeply. If it angered you, it must require action. But life teaches you otherwise. Many intense emotions pass quickly when not fed. Many conflicts resolve themselves when not inflamed. Many people reveal themselves fully if you simply remain quiet long enough. Silence becomes a powerful ally. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of confidence. You no longer rush to fill space. You allow pauses in conversation. You allow others to speak first. You allow misunderstandings to clarify themselves without your interference. This changes how people treat you. Some become uneasy around your calm. They are accustomed to emotional reactions they can anticipate and manage. Your restraint removes their advantage. Others feel safer around you. They sense stability. They feel less judged, less pressured. At work, this shift can be especially noticeable. You may find yourself less interested in office drama, less reactive to criticism, less eager to defend your position. You speak when necessary. You listen more than you speak. You let results speak for you. You notice something interesting. The less you react emotionally, the more authority you seem to carry. People listen more carefully. They choose their words more deliberately. They hesitate before challenging you, not because you are intimidating, but because your calm signals experience. Experience has a weight that emotion cannot imitate. In family relationships, emotional control takes on a different meaning. You see younger relatives struggle with the same emotions you once struggled with. You feel empathy, not urgency. You know advice is rarely received when emotions are raw, so you wait. You remain present without pushing. You offer support without control. This patience is not accidental, it is earned. You have learned that people grow at their own pace, that lessons cannot be forced, that love expressed through steadiness often outlasts love expressed through intensity. There is also grief that comes with this clarity.
You may notice how often you once reacted unnecessarily, how much energy you spent trying to be understood by people who were never listening, how often you allowed others to control your emotional state. This realization can sting, but it does not need to become regret. It can become compassion. You did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. Emotional control grows from lived experience, not instruction. Another reason aging makes emotional control easier is that your identity becomes less fragile. When you are younger, your sense of self is still forming. Criticism feels threatening because it shakes your foundation. With time, your identity solidifies. You know who you are. You know what matters to you. You know what does not. When someone misunderstands you now, it feels less urgent to correct them. Their perception no longer defines you. When someone disrespects you, you recognize it as information about them, not proof about you. This shift is subtle but profound. It frees you from constant emotional vigilance. You no longer scan every interaction for validation or rejection. You engage more selectively. You conserve your emotional energy for people and situations that deserve it. There is also the matter of loss. Aging introduces loss in various forms. Loss of people, loss of roles, loss of physical abilities. These experiences deepen emotional understanding. You learn that pain does not destroy you, that sadness can coexist with peace, that joy can be quieter and still real. After loss, many emotions lose their sharpness, not because you become numb, but because your emotional rage expands. You have felt worse and survived. This knowledge creates resilience. Resilience changes how you experience daily frustrations. Minor inconveniences no longer feel catastrophic. Insults no longer feel defining. Delays no longer feel unbearable. You develop a longer emotional horizon. This does not mean you tolerate mistreatment. In fact, emotional control often leads to firmer boundaries. When you are no longer driven by reactive emotion, you can choose clear, decisive action. You leave situations that drain you. You distance yourself from people who repeatedly disrespect you. You say no without guilt.
Calmness strengthens boundaries because it removes negotiation. You are not asking for understanding. You are stating reality. Many people fear emotional control because they associate it with suppression, with becoming cold or detached. But true emotional control is not about denying feelings. It is about allowing them to exist without letting them rule your behavior. You still feel anger. You still feel hurt. You still feel disappointment. But you do not build your actions around these emotions. You let them pass through you. You give them space without giving them control. This is a form of psychological freedom that often arrives later in life. Freedom from the need to explain yourself. Freedom from the pressure to respond immediately. Freedom from emotional urgency. You may notice that your reactions slow down. You take longer to respond to messages. You think before speaking. You choose your words carefully. This is not hesitation. It is discernment. Discernment is the quiet wisdom that says, not every truth needs to be spoken, not every feeling needs to be shared, and not every conflict needs to be addressed. As emotional control strengthens, so does inner peace. Not a dramatic peace, but a steady one. You feel less pulled by external events, less shaken by opinions, less affected by the emotional volatility around you. This can feel isolating at first. You may notice that some relationships change. People who relied on your emotional reactions may feel distant. Conversations may become shorter. Conflicts may dissolve without resolution. This is not loss. It is realignment. You are no longer available for emotional chaos, and that is a quiet form of self-respect. With age, you also develop a deeper relationship with silence. Silence becomes restorative rather than uncomfortable. You no longer feel compelled to fill it. You recognize its value. Silence allows you to process emotions internally. It gives you space to understand what you actually feel, rather than reacting to what you think you should feel. It allows clarity to emerge naturally. Many older individuals discover that their strongest moments come from restraint rather than action, from choosing not to engage, from stepping back rather than stepping forward. This restraint is often misunderstood by a world that celebrates constant expression, but restraint is not weakness, it is mastery. Mastery of emotion does not mean emotional absence, it means emotional maturity. You begin to trust yourself more. You trust your ability to handle discomfort. You trust your judgment about when to speak and when to remain silent. You trust your capacity to endure uncertainty. This trust reduces anxiety. Anxiety thrives on urgency and fear of loss. Emotional control reduces both. You are less afraid of being misunderstood, less afraid of being disliked, less afraid of being alone, because you have learned that peace is not something others give you, it is something you protect. As the years pass, emotional control becomes less of an effort and more of a state. You no longer feel like you are holding yourself back. You feel like you are moving from a place of choice. This choice brings dignity in how you respond to disrespect,
dignity in how you handle conflict, dignity in how you carry yourself. People may not always notice it consciously, but they feel it. They sense a steadiness that cannot be provoked easily, a presence that does not need to dominate. This is quiet authority. Quiet authority does not demand attention. It attracts respect through consistency, through calm, through restraint. You may still have moments when emotions surge unexpectedly, a memory, a comment, a familiar wound. Emotional control does not mean these moments disappear. It means you recognize them as temporary. You do not build stories around them. You do not let them define your day. You allow them to pass. This ability is not taught. It is lived into existence. Aging teaches you that emotional storms always move on, that reacting often prolongs them, that stillness shortens them. There is a certain relief in this understanding, a sense of coming home to yourself. You no longer need to chase emotional resolution in every situation. Some things remain unresolved, and that is acceptable. You no longer need closure from everyone. You give it to yourself. This is one of the most unexpected aspects of aging. Emotional control does not make life smaller, it makes it lighter. You carry less emotional weight. You walk through interactions with less tension. You breathe more freely. You become selective with your concern, selective with your care, selective with your reactions. This selectivity is not indifference. It is respect for your own inner life. By the time emotional control feels natural, you realize something else. You are never meant to react to everything. You are meant to observe, choose, and move forward with intention. Aging does not dull emotion, it refines it. It removes the noise and leaves the signal. And in that quiet clarity, you discover a strength that does not announce itself, a calm that cannot be easily shaken, a dignity that does not depend on recognition. You realize that emotional control was not something you lost over time, it was something you grew into. And perhaps the most surprising part is this: you didn't have to force it. Life taught you gently, through repetition, through experience, through moments of pain and moments of peace. Now, when emotions rise, you meet them with understanding rather than fear, with patience rather than urgency. You have learned that control is not about holding on tightly, it is about knowing when to let go, and that knowledge brings a peace that feels earned, a peace that stays with you.